Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind.
This is our kingdom, a kingdom of righteousness. Praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord.
For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not cold, that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. To the kingdom of Israel!
Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh.
The election, an aristocracy, meaning rule of the best, a group or class considered superior to state, a governing body composed of the best men in the state, and that's the elect. We're about to have it all right? Psalms 37 and verse 11, and it reads, "But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." That word for peace in the Hebrew is shalom, which goes into safety, soundness in body, meaning we're going to truly have rest, welfare, health, prosperity, peace, quiet, tranquility, contentment. So we're going to fully enjoy the planet Earth. We're going to rule and exist within the Lord's creation as we were created to do. I'm ready to rule the world, man. How about you?
Let the golden light of this sunset guide our hearts in peace.
Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
The ocean spirit dances today to abundance and joy and to eternal peace.
See, this is what we're hoping for. This is part of our hope. Not only that we are members of the elect, with fruits meet for repentance, like John the Baptist said, but from our low estate, because we've been brought low, even though we have this knowledge, we have this truth. Remember what it said in Revelation. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Why are we rich? Because we're rich in faith. We have this knowledge. So our hope is at our last end, we're going to be increased. Okay? And if you ask me, the greatest riches right now is to be delivered by Yahweh Shai is to get that new body that the Apostle Paul spoke about in 1 Corinthians 15th chapter, to get that, get that new body where we'll never be sick, we'll be immortals, like it said in 1 Corinthians 15, to be delivered from the coming destruction, and to be a part of Yahweh Shai's cabinet in the next kingdom. Okay, those are the real riches right now. That's what we want to get. Because if you get that, you got everything. I mean, you got everything. Okay, so our sights are set a lot higher than this present world. All right, as it is written, the fashion of this world shall pass away. We are individuals of vision, and the scripture said, where an individual lacks vision, he perishes. Okay, so we can see the future. All right, and we hope that we're going to be part of it, beginning with the elect.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Murkakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the whole elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, so what we're going to get into this morning, all right, the weaponized dependency, okay, and E on the scene in Venezuela. All right, as brothers have been speculating, what's happening down in Venezuela. You best believe, all right, that the devil, has his hands in the mix. Okay, because as we go into the scriptures, and in fact, again, let's go here to the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, and verse 16. And it says, for they sleep till they had mischief, and with, this left hand, wisdom he has, his technology, he's able to, research these things. On scripture say the inward heart, all right, of them is deep. Okay, so they're able to research things and they're able to plot and scheme on a whole nother level. The more technology this devil, has access to, the more information, the more data, all right, the more wicked this devil can be, So now he's to the point to where, he can stage and set up, he can manipulate, the tectonic plates, with pocket nukes, okay, and cause earthquakes, man. So this man is able to manipulate certain natural disasters. All right. So now, this devil is able to cause, these natural disasters, which, he's able to make it seem as if, look, these things just naturally happen. He can explain it away, with his science, like, okay, this was waiting to happen. It had this much pressure on this plate. And then when this one slipped, it caused the other one to go off. And we know, okay, that these things happen naturally, you see, but this devil, he's able to manipulate things and has them to happen selectively, okay, and be intentional, okay, with mischief behind it, man. Okay. So going with this thing in Venezuela, just to do a follow-up, we're gonna see how, the devil has slid in the game. Okay. It says for the verse 17, for they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Okay. So the wickedness is his appetite. This devil has a whipping appetite for wickedness, man, for mischief. Okay, for causing harm, destruction, all right, calamity, okay, robbery, you know. That's his appetite, man. And he says he drink the wine of violence because he follows up everything he does with violence, man. Okay, everything that this man does, all right, he follows up with violence. You know, he sets the stage, you know, with propaganda. Okay, he was saying Venezuela was you know, a haven for you know, for the cartel, and so many drugs are flooding America from Venezuela, which was a lie. Okay, most of the drugs come from Colombia and Mexico. Okay, Venezuela is like 5% of the drugs that come to America, man. And Esau, all right, is his CIA, all right, that orchestrate the cartel. Okay, so this devil, you know, he pushes, you know, propaganda and slander, and then what does he come with? Violence, you know, and now the violence he does what? More wickedness, man. Let's go here because Howard Shah gave us a rundown, okay, of Esau, his MO, okay, and this is what this man is all about, all right, and we're gonna constantly bring it out all the time, because this is the devil, okay, at work, man. This is John 10:10. It says, "The thief cometh not but for to steal and kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." Okay, and this is the MO of the devil. All right, the thief. Okay, he's the thief. Okay, because what he's doing in Venezuela, and he does this all throughout the world. Venezuela is just the latest example of what the devil does throughout the world. All right, it said the thief coming not but for to steal and kill and to destroy. That's all he's about. Okay, this man is the thief of the earth. Okay, he has all these laws. You know, here it is. You know, you can't, you know, you can't steal, you know, bag of chips out the store. Okay, but this nigga gets to steal, you know, resources from whole nations of people. Okay, what you stealing shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't be stealing no way, anything, but just the hypocrisy of this man's system. He has all these laws in place, you know, that's against stealing, but no one steals more than him. Okay, he has all these, you know, you know, laws against, you know, murder, but no one's a bigger killer than him. Okay, no one's a bigger destroyer of the earth than this man. Okay, but he has all these different law enforcement in place where he enforces these certain laws on the masses, but he can do it on a grander scale than anybody, man. You know, so you go from there. Let's get this, and let's get this in the book of Micah. You know, it's just the devil being the typical devil, man. Micah 2:1 says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds." Okay, so woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, which is destruction, man. See, there's a destruction for everything that this man is doing. Esau was just running up the tab, okay, and he's gonna, all right, get to a point to where that destruction gonna be unleashed on Esau, man. Okay, Esau was just running up his tab in these last days, man, and he's almost to the point to the Lord's gonna require, all right, that payment, which is gonna be a punishment, man. It's gonna require these devils going into captivity, man. You know, so woe to them that devise iniquity, man. These are crafty, you know, organized wickedness that this devil, okay, is pulling off, man. Okay, and work evils upon their beds, yeah, in their comfort. They're in their rest, they're in their kingdom. And all this nigga does is imagine mischief and evil and iniquity. All this free time and resources this man has, and the main thing on his mind is some type of mischief and wickedness and evil, man. Now, what type of wickedness can he do next? What can he put in the food next? What can he spray in the air next? What can he push in the music next? Okay, what can he push in the media next? What war can he start next? Okay, what resources can they steal next? This is all this man. This how this man thinks. Okay, here this man has the fatness of the earth and all his resources, and this the only thing that's on this nigga mind is some type of iniquity, man. It said when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. Yeah, so these secret counsels that they have, all right, they're able, to practice it in real time, to implement in real time because they have the power and authority to do so. They run these governments, they run these industries, okay? They control, these economies, okay? The supply chain, okay? They control, majority of the food, which we're going to get into that. Okay, so it's in the power of his hand, to execute on his wickedness because he controls, all right, all these different facets of life, man. He has created a major dependency. The world is created. The world has a major dependency on the devil. And he intentionally set it up that way because it doesn't have to be the way that the world is dependent on this man. It doesn't have to be like that. There's no way that you know, you can have starvation. You should have starvation based on one waterway in the world being closed. Okay, do you know how fragile that is? Okay, to put the well-being of the world on one checkpoint, the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, that's crazy. You see, but he intentionally does these things because he's able to have an on and off switch. Okay, to chaos, man. Okay, it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage, man. Okay, so they covet fields, okay, which is the earth, and parts of the earth that have resources that he wants, he covets them. He doesn't care about the population that exists on there, how long they've been there. Okay, he's going to come up with propaganda. He's going to spin the story. Okay, he's going to make it seem like their leader is this tyrant. Okay, and he's coming to rescue the people. All right, and the people are in a worse off situation than they were before he came. And this is his man's system all throughout the earth, all throughout this American empire, because America really began to empire after World War II. American empire just went rampant, and America has just been throughout the earth, all right, with this same formula, okay, of just demonizing, okay. Then he comes with the sword, and then he extorts, he extrapolates the wealth, all right, and leaves the locals impoverished, okay, and dependent on him, more dependent on him, because when someone's impoverished, they're more dependent on this man. They can look at this man as a hero. You see, that's why people, look at these billionaires, and, they're like, people look at them like gods because there's so much poverty in the world. It's like, damn, how did this nigga get $1 billion and there's so much poverty in the world? And it's all is done intentional, man. You see, Michael 2:3 said, therefore, thus said the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil from which ye shall not remove your necks. Yeah, so against this whole family, every Edomite, the Lord has, all right, a punishment for every Edomite in the earth, man. Okay? No Edomite is going to go unscathed, all right, when the Lord sends forth judgment, man. And you're not going to be able to remove your necks because this devil, he's used to, getting in a jam and wiggling his way out of it and going on to do more wickedness, man. Okay? But this ain't going to be the case. You see, this is a time where the Most High finna hit that gavel and he's going to send you how to execute that judgment, man. Okay, so he's not going to be able to remove his neck from the judgment that's coming. Neither shall you go haughtily, for this time is evil. Okay, for this time is evil. So we're coming, into some bad time. All right, and heavy judgment from to go forth. And the Lord's going to use Esau to judge, but then the Lord's going to judge Esau. Okay, and he's going to judge Esau way more severe than he judges anyone else in the earth, man. Okay, so you Edomites can get ready, So they're going on their last, hoorah, okay, of wickedness, okay, before the Lord intervenes. Now let's go here, and then we'll segue into the video. Let's get this in the GNT. This Sirach 12, all right, and 16 in the GNT. It says he will speak fine words while he plots how to trap you. Okay, and that's what the devil is about. He jumping on media. Because let him tell it, man. He's about freeing and liberating the people of the world. Because he created this boogeyman from amongst certain nations. With Venezuela, it was Maduro. First, it was Chavez. All right, then it was Maduro. Okay, created him to be this, this drug kingpin. Okay, this drug kingpin president. That was just, you know, destroying his people. Okay, but then he comes in and says, "Well, look, we want to help. The American government wants to help. Okay, we want to come in and we want to do this, we want to do that. All right." And all he's doing, he just setting the play up for him to come with the sword and steal. Okay? It says he will pretend to share your sorrows, but he will kill you if he gets a chance. Yeah, because here it is, this earthquake has killed all these people, misplaced, tens of thousands. Okay, and probably has killed tens of thousands. All right. But he'll get on the TV and say, look, we just freed Venezuela from a tyrant. We want to see the Venezuelan people this and this and that. Same play. We want to free the Iraqi people from this tyrant. Okay. We want to free the Syrian people from this tyrant. Okay. We just free the Libyan people from this tyrant. Now Libya can prosper. But it'd be a goddamn lie. Okay. And then he doubles back, sets up sets up shop, scrapulate the resources, okay, funds, these different rebel groups, to keep the place destabilized, okay, and the people live in complete terror. Okay. You go to Syria, ever since they overthrew Bashar, Syria is in complete terror, man. Nothing but civil wars. All right. The leader, which is former ISIS leader, now he's the president. This nigga was this nigga was a leader in ISIS. Now he's the president of Syria, man. Okay, like Esau runs the earth in a very shisty, grimy, nigga type way, man. Okay, well then you look at, you know, you know, you look at how, certain things are organized, and you like this nigga got it together. Like, nah, man, this nigga runs the earth, because it's just pockets of place that you see organized. You can go, ride your bike, walk your dog, okay, go bar hopping. You seeing people, live their lifestyle, and they really don't understand the wickedness that this man has going on in the earth real time. Because people are just occupied in their little pockets of reality, but they don't understand the wickedness. And if the news don't talk about it, people are oblivious to the wickedness that the devil has going on. Okay, it says he will pretend to share your sorrows, but he will kill you if he gets a chance. If troubles come your way, you will find him waiting, ready to trip you up while he pretends to help you. Okay, while he pretends to help you. Okay, and as it says in the KJV, if trouble, if you come into calamity, you shall find him first on the scene. As if he's there. It says he will be a different person then, rubbing his hands, nodding his head, and spreading rumors about you. You see? So this the same man, that demonized a whole nation of people. Okay? Then he'll overthrow their leader. All right. And then he'll come set up shop, pretend to help you. Okay. And then just put, all right. And they see he comes to be the real tyrant. That's one thing about this devil. He puts up all these characters to be these tyrants and these villains. But when he comes set up shop, he's the actual tyrant. So let's go here. Let's play this, because like I say, now you have Esau on the scene. Let me see. Let's play this.
Anya, double earthquakes hit Venezuela. This is a rare occurrence. There are hundreds dead. Many may be trapped under the rubble, partly because of a lack of heavy equipment. And this seems to be an opportunity for the U.S. military to deepen its infiltration of Venezuela after kidnapping the legitimate president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores. This is a video from Southcom that put out. Southcom supporting Department of State-led rescue efforts following the earthquakes that struck the nation.
See the violin, okay, the U.S. soldiers, you know. It's all photo op, man. Okay? Photo optics, man. You see? And you look at like these niggas, you know, these niggas are saviors of the world. Okay? But it was military technology, you know, that caused that earthquake, man. You see? But then the same military show up, okay, with the violin in the background, you know, niggas passing out plates, okay? And you like, oh, these are some great niggas, man. Okay? No, man. Because what did this give America an excuse to do? To place military personnel in Venezuela. Okay? To start to occupy Venezuela under the banner of humanitarian aid. Okay? Let's play this.
Of Venezuela. And they're playing some cheesy music. All right, well, we get the point. Anya, what happened in Venezuela? Why is this politically significant and not just a natural disaster of an ordinary natural disaster?
Looking at those images, it's pretty sad because honestly, considering the catastrophe in Venezuela, which is a true catastrophe, mainly centered around La Guaira, the capital city of La Guaira state, next to the capital district of Caracas. Devastation there, from what I understand, is quite bad. Hundreds of buildings collapsed, and sanctions having prevented the government from purchasing the heavy machinery needed.
And who put the sanctions on Venezuela? America. Okay? They so goddamn helpful, but the reason why Venezuela has been in economic crisis, and this has been almost a decade, Venezuela's been in an economic crisis, because of American sanctions.
To respond to this catastrophe have led to the fact that, you know, people have been trapped under the rubble for days until now, with this aid coming in from Ecuador and Colombia, El Salvador, and Mexico. They weren't even really able to move the rubble and begin to rescue people. So I'm sure if there were people that could have been saved in those initial hours, just because of U.S. sanctions alone, hundreds, if not thousands of people died just because the government was unable to make a response. But watching that video from the United States, on one hand, yes, under these circumstances, as an American, I'm happy to see that my government is going to support Venezuela in theory. Unfortunately, this isn't just your average humanitarian response. This is, again, coming in because the state itself has been cut off from the rest of the world and unable to provide for itself. As a result of this catastrophe, it looks like, oh, this is a failure of the government. Now the U.S. can come in with these other competent Latin American states and run the show. And that's really what it looks like they're planning to do, especially considering the U.S. was already coordinating military strikes on sovereign Venezuelan territory before this catastrophe even took place. So it definitely looks like an opportunity for the United States and its allies to entrench their presence in Venezuela. And while regional solidarity should be something that we celebrate or find inspiring, instead it just feels like it's a manipulation tactic to do a soft further regime change, which they've pretty much been carrying out since Maduro was removed from office on January 3rd.
Yeah, it's a means of turning Venezuela further into a U.S. military base since we saw the very provocative V-22 Osprey landing at the new U.S. embassy. The U.S. embassy had voluntarily left, and before that, in January 2009, during Israel's quote-unquote Operation Cast-led assault on the Gaza Strip, which was the first really devastating assault that led up to the current genocide, Venezuela's then president, Hugo Chavez, expelled the Israeli ambassador and all of his staff in protest and never brought them back. And from that point on, the Venezuelan government was in conflict with Israel, and they treated Iran like a normal country. They treated the Islamic Republic of Iran as a normal country, and Iran helped them under sanctions a lot. And now this is happening under the cover of earthquake aid. Israel is sending teams into Venezuela. I assume these include intelligence officers and military-like officials. Jewish and Israeli aid rescue organizations are preparing to send teams, according to E-Jewish Philanthropy. The Israeli government also said it was preparing to send an aid delegation. The foreign ministry is holding a situational assessment with the relevant figures in Israel and is determining ways to help. So, the first time, Anya, you and I ever saw Delcy Rodriguez was at the People's Assembly meeting in Caracas, and she was wearing a kufiya. And now, under her leadership, Israel is getting a toehold back in Venezuela, which I assume will deepen, and then
Small has done showed up in Venezuela. So there's pure wickedness, man. If we're going back into it, they got these surge spots on the earth, that they want to make into these new hubs, for these billionaires, man. Okay? So your small has in the building. So all right, it's pure wickedness. And this devil is up to no good, man.
we'll talk about Colombia next, but what are your thoughts?
It's definitely shocking to see the Israelis set foot in Venezuela. It's hard to say under such circumstances what any other leader would do, because they obviously need help. But it would have been thought in previous years, perhaps, that would be a red line. And I just want to say also that La Guaira, where this catastrophe, this earthquake, this double quake, at first a 7.2 on the Richter scale, followed by a 7.5 seconds later, just absolutely terrifying. I don't know if anybody's ever been in smaller earthquakes, but if there are 4, they're pretty scary to be a part of. And so I can't imagine what it would be like to go beyond 7. And so they went through that twice, which is very rare. And earthquake of that magnitude hasn't been detected in Venezuela for over a century. So, but this area, La Guaira, was also the site of a catastrophe in 1999 when floodwaters brought on by a terrible storm caused the coast essentially to collapse. And there were huge landslides, mudslides that killed up to 10 to 30,000 people. Some people, bodies were never recovered. They were buried under the mud, swept out into the sea. And that was initially, the numbers, the death toll from that is way higher than anything that is officially predicted now in Venezuela. And so Venezuela, the same thing, which give it its oil and its iron ore and its gold and its resources, these fault lines are also, and its place in the world are also its greatest curse, because it has led to these natural disasters that really devastate the country at times. And now, under this government, have created a situation where the U.S. military that has been kept out for so long might now be able to gain a foothold, intensify its place and its ability to control the country, and then the U.S. by default might get its hands on some of those resources.
Hell yeah, that's the whole plate, because every shipment of aid is going to come with a shipment of troops. Okay, every shipment of aid is going to come with a shipment of troops, and niggas just going to move in like Rodney on Baby Boy. Niggas are going to move in and stay there. Okay, because if Venezuelans ain't going to have the power to kick them out. And this is why when they made their move, all right, and switched up, Madero for this chick, Delcy Rodriguez, which I fully believe she's a CIA operative, and she was the plant in the background the whole time, all right, because she's already has cut all these deals, okay, with America, man, okay. So yeah, your boy on the scene in Venezuela, he done made his move, and they finna set up shop, and going into the new world order. What do they need? They need that oil, different minerals, okay, to power this new world order, okay. So you have this, this resource war that's happening, with Russia and China on one side and America and these small hats on the other side, because they agree with this new world order, but then they know their resources are limited, and whoever goes in with the resources that has that's the side that has the leverage in this new world order, man. Okay. So let's go from there, because another thing the devil has done, he has created, all right, dependency, all right, food dependency. Okay. And the way that the masses are dependent, all right, on this devil's shipping. Okay, that's why oil is such a big deal, because of the shipment of food, and also the byproduct makes, refining the oil makes a byproduct that's used for fertilizer. Okay, and all that, is a system of control, all right, and dependency. You see, and it gives this devil an on and off switch, to the food supply. All right, so let's segue from there, and let's play a little bit of this, dealing with this guy. He goes in on a few things. So we'll jump around in this pretty long interview, but we'll jump around. Let me go ahead and put the link to the interview in the chat. Let's play this.
In US stablecoin, and it's a limited time offer. So act now. So take control of your money. Get started with Rumble Wallet today. There are some terms and conditions. You can see that information in the show description.
So where America stands versus Europe, where the farmers are in rebellion because these corporations pushed by the WEF and the UN and the WHO, oh, we're going to help you. You have to stop eating meat. It's bad for you. You can only eat meat when we tell you. They literally did that during COVID in France. 500 grams a week. I forget what I read. But they actually passed laws, and you can't eat meat so much. Now imagine the higher ups are still eating their big steaks. The real reason I raise Europe is that we're already way ahead of Europe. We're already way ahead of Europe in our consolidation. We go through drive-thrus. We eat processed food. Europeans, you go to France, they really like their escargot. They really like their bread. They really have really great food if you go there. Ireland, they really value their food supply, having lived through a horrible experience of a famine. The Netherlands, one of the front lines of the fight, people don't realize that there was a famine inflicted deliberately on the Dutch people by the Nazis, a blockade. It was horrific. And that's why the Netherlands became the largest food producers perhaps in the world per acre. And they're now being told that they're destroying the planet, so they have to stop producing food. It'll be produced somewhere else, presumably with similar or worse environmental costs. America's already way ahead of them. We don't really value our traditional foods the same way as like the Italians and their pasta. They pass laws against even calling it the wrong thing. We want cheap and fast. We want processed. We don't care where it comes from. Just put it in my mouth so I can go consume, work, whatever. And that
and that's a major point. America don't give a damn. Okay, America does not give a damn. Just pass them a bag of food out the window so they can go back to their folly. Okay, and there's no one that's more food dependent than America. You see, Esau flip it as convenience. You got 5 Bojangles, 10 Chick-fil-A's, Wingstop. You got all these options, so you look at it as convenience. You don't look at it as, the American people don't look at it as dependency. Okay. That's why they're able to slide in whatever chemical they want into the food. Okay. They're able to, they're able to destroy people, through the food. You see, because the majority of the American society, okay, are food dependent. That means that, without an outside entity, they don't eat. If you remove away, okay, corporations and the government, well, most Americans don't eat. And that creates this own off switch, all right, that the elites have on the American food supply. Okay. And they're gonna hit that switch soon. If brothers could get all the let's get all the famine precepts, all the precepts dealing with famine, the second Ezra 15:5, uh uh, you know, Matthew 24, okay, the ones in Ezekiel, you should eat your bread and measure. I think Ezekiel 4, around verse 16, Jeremiah 15, 1-3. You see? Because the famine is a major part of judgment in these last days. Okay? And American society, is in the most vulnerable position in the world. We're gonna show you, we're gonna get the numbers and show you, So let's play some more of this.
That's the complacency that has led to a dependency on food that is less nutritious than our grandparents had, and that we used to have in our backyards. And one day we're going to wake up and go, wait a minute, when did I become so totally dependent on this this corporate monopoly? Because all those other industries that you mentioned, when we talk about fertilizer, seeds, equipment manufacturers, all of those industries, monopolies or oligopolies. That's what's destroying the farmers. So when we bail out our commercial farmers in America, we're literally just using them as a conduit to give money to Dow and Monsanto and other companies. They're not closing up. They're not selling up their multi-generational farms because they always get paid or they don't sell their product. When you're a farmer, you're bound to commodities markets. And so the entire modern conventional agricultural industrial system is flawed. It's not sustainable. It's in its death throes. That's what we're seeing right now. So people will become aware of this, whether they like it or not. And they'll either see it in food shortages or food inflation or both.
And so, and I think, so I want to get to that. I'll bring up your book because right here, it's called the Coming Food Crisis, how corporations, activists, and climate alarmists are waging war on farmers. So I want to get to that and kind of dig into some of the information surrounding that. But before we jump into that, though, if you look at Europe, one of the big difference between America, the point you're making, how far, I guess, ahead we are in this or how far behind we are in health, is that so many of the pesticides, atrazine, glyphosate, et cetera, that they use here in many European countries, they were never even introduced. Like they looked at the studies at the very beginning and said, there's no way we're going to put these on our food for our people. And so I think if you look at, you have these giant corporations, which obviously have an immense amount of control over America. But I think that the real crux of the matter comes down to the regulatory agencies. And it's this collusion of the FDA, the USDA, the EPA. It's these organizations that are supposed to be protecting the American people that are actually just protecting the corporations. You look at what happened with the forever chemicals with DuPont, right? With Teflon, where, one of the more famous cases where they knew that they were poisoning people. They knew that they were killing and poisoning their own workers on the factory lines, and they were dumping it into the waterways. They knew all this stuff that they're doing, yet they kept on doing it. And then they paid some fines and they kept on doing it. And you could see through that process, though, that it was the collusion with EPA and some of these other agencies that in many ways turned a blind eye. And so I think that that's one of the big things that is leading to the situation that we're in, is that there is this, it's almost like you could call it fascism, right? It's this merger of the state and the private companies, that, these corporations. And without even getting into big pharma or any of those things, I think it's a very serious thing facing our country.
Well, it is. And I think that at root, there's a fine line between a private public partner. Life have defined fascism that way. When you have, when corporations and or industry, we should say, perhaps, and government are walking in lockstep and control us. And that is what we're seeing. And it tends to permeate all institutions. In other words, it can happen in a capitalist or a socialist society. We're not going to just, embrace Marxism and fix these problems. As Wendell Berry has pointed out, the socialists did a great job polluting their environment too. And so when we get to really looking at how we solve for these problems, these are huge problems. We didn't get here overnight. And so people, shouldn't give up or be daunted by the challenge. In fact, just the opposite. We should be emboldened as our eyes are open to the need to reverse this.
And see, they think that they can farm their way out of it. It's too late, especially in America. It's over with. Okay, you're not gonna be able to farm your way out of it. And see, let's go into a couple things. I want to go into this because he spoke about how even in, in Europe, there's certain pesticides that they never allowed. America is one big laboratory. The food that we eat in America, or the food that we have access to in America, no one on the planet Earth, okay, has those chemicals in their food. And a big reason for this is because this loophole, all right, that the FDA, okay, have with these corporations is called GRAS, all right, GRAS stands for generally recognized as safe, right? We went over this before. It says it is an FDA designation indicating that a chemical or substance. Now, why is there a chemical in foods? Okay, why does a food need chemicals? Okay, so the added to food is considered safe by experts under the condition of its intended use. Under U.S. law, any substance intentionally added to food must undergo pre-market review and approval unless any substance intentionally added to the food must undergo pre-market review and approval unless it qualifies for GRAS exemption. And under GRAS exemption, generally recognized as safe, that's where you get your yellow 5, your red 40, that's where you get your high fructose, all right, corn syrup, okay? They can slide any chemical they want as long as the scientists from Nabisco, from Kraft, just give some example. Long as the scientists from these major food producers say, look, it's the GRAS is generally recognized as safe. We've tested it's good. They don't have to go under the scrutiny of the FDA. Okay. And through that loophole with GRAS, that's why you have, all right, America, has almost 4,500 more chemicals than any other nation on the earth that's incorporated into the food. Okay, it says manufacturers, okay, manufacturers. So the company itself can determine that a substance is GRAS on their own without notifying the FDA. Manufacturers can determine that a substance is GRAS, generally recognized as safe, on their own without notifying the FDA. They rely on publicly available scientific data and a panel of qualified experts which they hire, okay, to declare the ingredients are safe, man. And this is why they're able to turn America food supply, okay, into a laboratory, man. Okay, they can pick what they want to try on the masses at will. Okay, and the scientists from these manufacturers can just say, yeah, we tested it's good. It generally recognized as safe. Okay, and put it on your shelf. Okay, so let's jump up a little bit in this.
Small, diversified farms. People can say, oh, you can't feed the world that way. No, you can't, because you've become industrialized, consolidated, and done something really, really stupid. That's like, oh, I can't quit fentanyl now because I'm hooked. We are addicted to cheap, toxic food that destroys the soil microbes, destroys our gut microbes, destroys our water supplies, which are being depleted at an accelerating rate. We just had a desert, a winter drought right out west. You may have heard. You don't replenish your aquifers. California, where we produce about half of our domestic produce, San Joaquin Valley area, the most productive area of land in agriculture in America, is subsiding. It's literally sinking because we're pumping so much water out of the ground. It's not sustainable. And when you put 92 million acres of corn a year, or land a year to corn, about, I think 40% of which is for ethanol, total boom, gutted. Oh, back to regulatory capture again, back to Congress, back to how dare you question ethanol. As soon as you start touching the golden goose for corporations, you will be a silkwood, if you know what I mean. You will disappear. This is their gravy train. And that's what we small farmers are a threat to. They've been trying to get rid of small farmers for 80 years. They've been doing it. Why? Because they increase their profit margin, and they can control and dominate markets, and they can charge the consumers whatever they want. Because once you control the food, you control the people. And I will give up my AR-15 and my free speech rights and my right to travel or assemble very quickly if I've been 3 days without a morsel to eat. That's what history teaches us. Food is the foundation. Without food, you don't have national security. You can't march an army without its stomach, and you can't wage a revolution. So they're trying to slowly pull that liberty, that essential connection away from us. And that's what I think more and more people are sensing and are seeking to reclaim. That's the homesteading movement. That's young people. And
yeah, man. So this devil, he knows you control the food, you control the people. You know, and that's a page out of the Bible, you know, which we'll get that as well. Let's get some of these precepts. So you brothers load it up. All right. And let me go ahead and put this up here too. Get some more information dealing with farming. So let's get some of these precepts. Brothers got this. The brother Yashima tribe of Judah, 2nd Ezra 15:5. Behold, said the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. Okay, so famine is always in the mix when the Lord talks about these judgments in the end time. All right, because the Lord is getting ready, you know, to utilize famine as a tool of judgment. Okay, you go here. This is brother GMS. Pray always hope for elect. Brother Corner Waff, 2nd Ezra 16:21. Behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Okay, like I said, because people, you know, look at the convenience of this society. Okay, you still can, you know, you got all these options where you can stop and eat, but no one considers, okay, what does all this food come from? Okay, what does all this excess food come from? Okay, what's the process of it? How is it getting to these restaurants? How is it getting to these stores, man? You know, it's a real fragile system that Esau has set up to where he can pull the plug on it, man. Okay, and most people, all right, cannot feed themselves without Esau being involved. Okay, and this is where, you know, because and we're on this grid as well, you know, some more than others, but either way, this is where our faith and our power, you know, and the promise of provisions is going to kick in. You see? But for the masses, they're finna be in terrible case, man. They're going to be extremely confused to go from all this abundance, okay, then to go into nothing, to scarcity, you know, to have all these options, okay? You know, the hardest decision a nigga make in the day is what they gonna eat for lunch. You know, at work, you know, it's the hardest decision a nigga make. Man, what I'm gonna eat for lunch? You know? But guess what? Every option finna be ain't finna be no options, man. Okay, for lunch. You see? And it says, there's a brother you call Hopeful 144, and it says this Jeremiah 24:10 says, I will send the sword, the famine, and pestilence among them till they be consumed from off the land that I gave unto them and to their fathers. And that happened, you know, during the time of the Babylonians. Okay, and it's going to happen on a larger scale here in Babylonian the Great. Okay, in Babylon the Great. So this is the brother Yashima tribe of Judah, Ezekiel 4:16. Moreover, he said unto me, son of man, behold, I will break the staff of the bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care, and they shall drink water by measure. Okay, and with astonishment, man. You see, so all this access to food that people have, because it's gonna go to a time of rationing, and then it's gonna go to a time of nothing. And to get in order to get back access to this food, guess what? He gonna have that device out there. Okay, he gonna put that device out there, man. You see, that C hip. Okay, in which the masses are gonna fold, those that survive. All right, because this famine finna take out a lot of people, man. A lot of people finna starve to death, man. Especially here in America, man, the place of abundance. Okay, this is the brother you call Hopeful 144, Ezekiel 7:15. The sword is without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword. Okay, so it's the violence. Because remember, when you have a scarcity of food, civil unrest is going to be off the chain. That's going to be the main motivator behind civil unrest, is the scarcity of food. Okay, that's going to be the main reason, because of this violence, which is going to explode. Okay, America, which is the most armed country, here it is. It's the most food dependent country, but it's the most armed country as well. So it's the most food dependent, but it's the most armed country, man. It's a hell of a recipe, man. And it says, and he that is in the city, all right, famine and pestilence shall devour him. You see? So the recipe, all right, for disaster, all the ingredients for disaster is in the mix. It's just a time when the Lord is going to push these devils to pull their plug. You see? So, let's get this one. All right, 2nd Ezra 6:22, it says, and suddenly shall the sown places, this is your brother Yashima tribe of Judah, 2nd Ezra 6:22, and suddenly shall the sown places, all right, appear unsown, the full storehouse shall suddenly be found empty. Okay? Suddenly be found empty. You see? So it's gonna come a time, where people, all right, are used to all this abundance, but then it's gonna be nothing. Trucks are not gonna run. Okay? The money is gonna, the inflation, and then it's gonna be a time of inflation to where you're gonna get priced out of food. Okay? And then it's gonna come a time when there's no food to buy. You're not gonna have access to it. Okay, it's not gonna be at your access, man. It's not, it's not even gonna be available for you to steal. Okay, so let's go here. I wanna, oh yeah, I meant to keep that up. But let's look it up real quick. So I asked Google the percentage of population that are farmers by country. It said globally about 27% of the workforce is employed in agriculture, but this varies drastically by country based on its economic deployment. In highly developed nations, the share is just a few percent, while in many low income and developing nations, farming remains a primary occupation for the majority of the population. So that's why even third world countries are going to be in a better predicament, okay, than America, man, when these devils pull the plug. It says highest rates of agriculture employment. These nations rely heavily on agriculture, with the majority of their workforce engaged in farming. All right, Burundi, all right, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Madagascar. All right, 85%, 74%, 70%. I said in terms of raw numbers, Asia and Africa dominate the ranking, as India and China alone have hundreds of millions of workers dedicated to the sector. India, 42% of the workforce, over 270 million agricultural workers. China has 25% of the workforce, over 220 million agricultural workers. Ethiopia, 66% of the workers, around 59 million, all right, agricultural workers. And you keep reading. Now, this the thing. Advanced economics. As countries industrialize and specialize, all right, agriculture employment shrinks dramatically. In the United States, for instance, farm and ranch families make up less than 2% of the total population, and direct agriculture employment is around 1 to 2%, man. Okay, which makes you extremely vulnerable and dependent, all right, to their on and off switch of the elites, man. Okay, that's why I say America is going to be the worst place to be in these times to come. Okay, America is going to be a horror house, man. You know, and we're going to see starvation on a level that this world has never seen. You know, because in fact, let's get this. A brother want to get that in the book of Job, chapter 4. All right, and I want to say, let's see, Job 4. Yeah, Job 4 and 8, Bible Shah. You know, and then I think that's in Lamentation. Is it 4 and 7? You know, because famine is say it's gonna be a major part, okay, of the judgment the Lord's getting ready to bring to Babylon, man. Okay, because Babylon is the reason for a lot of starvation in the earth. Okay, I think the Lamentation might be 4, 7, 9. Let's see. Yeah, Lamentation 4 and 9, Bible Shah. Okay, yeah, Lamentation 4 and 9. This is the brother Corner Waff, GMS prayer, I always hope for elect, Job 4 and 8. It said, even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. Okay? So they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. So there's a lot of, all right, wickedness, okay, that's getting ready to come to America, man. Because America has sown a lot of wickedness in the earth. Matter of fact, I want to get this real quick to show you, because they talking about, you know, like they want to help, you know, Venezuela. They're down there to help. You know, you got the violin playing while they pushing them big ass cars. Them folks ain't pushing them big ass crates, man. Photo op, okay? You know, the Edomite chick, like she pushing this big ass crate of food on the plane, man. Okay? It's photo ops. And you go here to, let's go here. All right, this is I said how long has the U.S. had sanctions on Venezuela, and what is the death toll behind it? It said the United States has maintained sanctions on Venezuela since 2005, going on 21 years, beginning with targeted restrictions on individuals, broad economic and sectorial sanctions were later escalated significantly in 2017 under Trump's first term. Estimates on the death toll caused by these economic restrictions vary, all right, widely and are highly contested. It says 40,000 deaths 2017 and 2018. A widely cited report by the Center of Economic and Policy Research, all right, estimated that sanctions contributed to over 40,000 deaths in 2017 and 18, restricting access to food, medical supplies, and basic commodities. Now, this devil has this in the background while saying that this leader is a tyrant. This leader is destroying his people. Okay? This man have restrictions on food, medical supplies, and basic commodities. Okay, while calling their leader a tyrant, man. You see? It says 100,000 plus deaths through early 2020. It says former United Nations Special, Rapporteur Afro D. Zayed estimated that the broad economic impact of the sanctions led to over 100,000 deaths by early 2020 due to shortages and hyperinflation. Okay, shortages and hyperinflation caused by what? American sanctions. Okay, because because Maduro didn't want America to come in and steal. If you say, nigga, you can't come steal everything we got, well, nigga, we're gonna put sanctions on you. You refuse, you know, because they pay off, you know, the heads and government officials to sell out their people. And if a leader refuses to do that, well, he's gonna get demonized and removed by force. Okay, and that's what they tried to do in Iran, but see, they done ran into that wall of prophecy. Okay, But yeah, just want to get that. Let's get this here. Yep. So this is Lamentations 4:9 from the brother GMS per always hopeful elect. It said, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger, for these pine away, stricken through for want of fruits of the land. Yeah, that's gonna be a tortured death. You know, when we went through, I think we asked chat, you know, the process of dying by famine. It's an extremely slow, agonizing, torturous death, man. You know, and a lot of this coming to America. Okay. So as you people, you know, finna celebrate your feast, you know, what's it tomorrow? All right, you getting ready to celebrate 250 years of wickedness, man. You know, and you people that partake in this celebration, man, hey, you know, hey, you're signing off on the wickedness, okay, of America, man. You see, you're getting ready to go celebrate this thing and go put on your red, white, and blue, okay? And you know, all right, you can give you Americans anything. You see, you American gonna be eating, you know, red, white, and blue donuts, you know, Twinkie with, you know, the red cream filling. That's why it's so easy to poison you people, because you just so goddamn, you know, caught up in trying to celebrate something and have a feast, okay? That they can just put all type of food, dye, and coloring in anything, and you don't give a damn. You like a child, you just see a red, white, and blue donut, and you're like, yeah, those colors don't exist in nature, man, when it comes to food. Okay. So that's the point, you know, Lord will, you know, you brothers, all right, and you few sisters are edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem, Yahushua by Hashem, Rakakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutations, hopefully, shalom.